This is chapter 17 of Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. Here are the questions. Why can't Katniss go to the Capitol with the others? 2. Out of desperation, how will Katniss get to the Capitol? 3. How do they treat Katniss's injury? 4. What is wrong with Joanna? 5. What do we learn about Joanna while she and Katniss are sharing a compartment? 6. What do the girls share a laugh over? 7. Describe the mood of Finnick and Annie now. 8. Peeta has surprised the group at dinner along with a couple of guards. Why? 9. What does Peeta say that upsets Finnick? And 10. What happens after Gale and Katniss leave the dining hall? All right, chapter 17. Blindsided. That's how I feel when Haymitch tells me in the hospital. I fly down the steps to command, mind racing a mile a minute, and burst right into a war meeting. What do you mean I'm not going to the Capitol? I have to go. I'm the Mockingjay, I say. Coin barely looks up from her screen. And as the Mockingjay, your primary goal of unifying the districts against the Capitol has been achieved. Don't worry, if it goes well, we'll fly you in for the surrender. The surrender? That'll be too late. I'll miss all the fighting. You need me. I'm the best shot you've got, I shout. I don't usually brag about this, but it's got to be at least close to true. Gale's going. Gale has shown up for training every day unless occupied with other approved duties. We feel confident he can manage himself in the field, says Coin. How many training sessions do you estimate you've attended? None. That's how many. Well, sometimes I was hunting and I trained with Beatty down in special weaponry. It's not the same, Katniss, says Boggs. We all know you're smart and brave and a good shot, but we need soldiers in the field. You don't know the first thing about executing orders, and you're not exactly at your physical peak. That didn't bother you when I was an 8, or 2 for that matter, I counter. You were originally authorized for combat in either case, says Plutarch, shooting me a look that signals I'm about to reveal too much. No, the bomber battle in 8 and my intervention in 2 were spontaneous, rash, and definitely unauthorized. And both resulted in your injury, Boggs reminds me. Suddenly I see myself through his eyes, a smallish 17-year-old girl who can't quite catch her breath since her ribs haven't fully healed, disheveled, undisciplined, recuperating, not a soldier, but someone who needs to be looked after. But I have to go, I say. Why? Asks Coin. I can't very well say it so I can carry out my own personal vendetta against Snow. Or the idea of remaining here in 13 with the latest version of Peeta while Gale goes off to fight is unbearable. But I have no shortage of reasons to want to fight in the Capitol. Because of 12. Because they destroyed my district. The president thinks about this a moment, considers me. Well, you have 3 weeks. It's not long, but you can begin training. If the assignment board deems you fit, possibly your case will be reviewed. That's it. That's the most I can hope for. I guess it's my own fault. I did blow off my schedule every single day unless something suited me. It didn't seem like much of a priority jogging around a field with a gun and so many other things going on. And now I'm paying for my negligence. Back in the hospital, I find Joanna in the same circumstance and spitting mad. I tell her about what Coin said. Maybe you can train too. Fine, I'll train, but I'm going to the stinking Capitol if I have to kill a crew and fly there myself, says Joanna. Probably best not to bring that up in training, I say, but it's nice to know I'll have a ride. Joanna grins and I feel a slight but significant shift in our relationship. I don't know that we're actually friends, but possibly the word allies would be accurate. That's good. I'm going to need an ally. The next morning, when we report to training at 7:30, reality slaps me in the face. We've been funneled into a class of relative beginners, 14 or 15-year-olds, which seems a little insulting until it's obvious they're in far better condition than we are. Gale and the other people already chosen to go to the Capitol are in a different, accelerated phase of training. After we stretch, which hurts, there's a couple of hours of strengthening exercises which hurt, in a 5-mile run which kills. Even with Joanna's motivational insults driving me on, I have to drop out after a mile. It's my ribs, I explained to the trainer, a no-nonsense middle-aged woman we're supposed to address as Soldier York. They're still bruised. Well, I'll tell you, Soldier Everdeen, those are going to take at least another month to heal up on their own, she says. I shake my head. I don't have a month. She looks me up and down. The doctors haven't offered you any treatment? Is there a treatment, I ask? They said they had to mend naturally. That's what they say, but they could speed up the process if I recommend it. I warn you, though, it isn't any fun, she tells me. Please, I have to get to the capital, I say. Soldier York doesn't question this. She scribbles something on a pad and sends me directly back to the hospital. I hesitate. I don't want to miss any more training. I'll be back for the afternoon session, I promise. She just purses her lips. 24 needle jabs to my rib cage later, I'm flattened out on my hospital bed, gritting my teeth to keep from begging them to bring back my morphling drip. It's been by my bed so I can take a hit as needed. I haven't used it lately, but I kept it for Joanna's sake. Today, they tested my blood to make sure it was clean of the painkiller, as the mixture of the two drugs, the morphling and whatever set my ribs on fire, has dangerous side effects. They made it clear I would have a difficult couple of days, but I told them to go ahead. It's a bad night in our room. Sleep's out of the question. I think I can actually smell the ring of flesh around my chest burning, and Joanna's fighting off withdrawal symptoms. Early on, when I apologize about cutting off her morphling supply, she waves it off, saying it had to happen anyway. But by 3 in the morning, I'm the target of every colorful bit of profanity District 7 has to offer. At dawn, she drags me out of bed, determined to get to training. I don't think I can do it, I confess. You can do it. We both can. We're victors, remember? We're the ones who can survive anything they throw at us, she snarls at me. She's a sick greenish color, shaken like a leaf. I get dressed. We must be victors to make it through the morning. I think I'm going to lose Joanna when we realize it's pouring outside. Her face turns ashen and she seems to have ceased breathing. It's just water, it won't kill us, I say. She clenches her jaw and stomps out into the mud. Rain drenches us as we work our bodies and then slog around the running course. I bail after a mile again, and I have to resist the temptation to take off my shirt so the cold water can sizzle off my ribs. I force down my field lunch of soggy fish and beet stew. Joanna gets halfway through her bowl before it comes back up. In the afternoon, we learn to assemble our guns. I manage it, but Joanna can't hold her hands steady enough to fit the parts together. When York's back is turned, I help her out. Even though the rain continues, the afternoon's an improvement because we're on the shooting range. At last, something I'm good at. It takes some adjusting from a bow to a gun, but by the end of the day, I've got the best score in my class. We're just inside the hospital doors when Joanna declares, "This has to stop. Us living in the hospital. Everyone views us as patients." It's not a problem for me. I can move into our family compartment, but Joanna's never been assigned one. When she tries to get discharged from the hospital, they won't agree to let her live alone, even if she comes in for daily talks with the head doctor. I think they may have put 2 and 2 together about the morphling, and this only adds to their view she's unstable. She won't be alone. I'm going to room with her, I announce. There's some dissent, but Hamish takes our part, and by bedtime, we have a compartment across from Prim and my mother, who agrees to keep an eye on us. After I take a shower and Joanna sort of wipes herself down with a damp cloth, she makes a cursory inspection of the place. When she opens the drawer that holds my few possessions, she shuts it quickly. Sorry. I think how there's nothing in Joanna's drawer but her government-issued clothes, that she doesn't have one thing in the world to call her own. It's okay. You can look at my stuff if you want. Joanna unlatches my locket, studying the pictures of Gail, Prim, and my mother. She opens the silver parachute and pulls out the spile and slips it onto her pinky. Makes me thirsty just looking at it. She finds the pearl Peeta gave me. Is this? Yeah, I say. Made it through somehow. I don't want to talk about Peeta. One of the best things about training is it keeps me from thinking of him. Hamish says he's gotten better, she says. Maybe, but he's changed, I say. So have you, so have I, and Finnick and Hamish and Beatty. Don't get me started on Annie Crusta. The arena messed all up, messed us all up pretty good, don't you think? Or do you still feel like the girl who volunteered for your sister, she asks. No, I answer. That's the one thing I think my head doctor might be right about. There's no going back, so we might as well get on with things. She neatly returns my keepsakes to the drawer and climbs into the bed across from me just as the lights go out. You're not afraid I'll kill you tonight? Like I couldn't take you, I answer. Then we laugh, since both our bodies are so wrecked, it would be a miracle if we can get up the next day. But we do. Each morning we do. And by the end of the week, my ribs feel almost like new, and Joanna can assemble her rifle without help. Soldier York gives the pair of us an approving nod as we knock off for the day. Fine job, soldiers. When we move out of hearing, Joanna mutters, I think winning the games was easier, but the look on her face says she's pleased. In fact, we're almost in good spirits when we go to the dining hall, where Gail's waiting to eat with me. Receiving a giant serving of beef stew doesn't hurt my mood either. First shipments of food arrived this morning, Greasy Say tells me. That's real beef from District 10, not any of your wild dog. Don't remember you turning it down, Gail tosses back. We join a group that includes Deli, Annie, and Finnick. It's something to see Finnick's transformation since his marriage. His earlier incarnations, the decadent capital heartthrob I met before the quell, the enigmatic ally in the arena, the broken young man who tried to help me hold it together, these have been replaced by someone who radiates life. Finnick's real charms of self-effacing humor and an easygoing nature are on display for the first time. He never lets go of Annie's hand, not when they walk, not when they eat. I doubt he ever plans to. She's lost in some days of happiness. There are still moments when you can tell something slips in her brain in another world, blinds her to us, but a few words from Finnick call her back. Deli, who I've known since I was little but never gave much thought to, has grown in my estimation. She was told what Peeta said to me that night after the wedding, but she's not a gossip. Hamish says she's the best defender I have when Peeta goes off on some kind of terror about me, always taking my side, blaming his negative perceptions on the Capitol's torture. She has more influence on him than any of the others do because he really does know her. Anyway, even if she's sugarcoating my good points, I appreciate it. Frankly, I could use a little sugarcoating. I'm starving and the stew is so delicious, beef, potatoes, turnips, and onions in a thick gravy, that I have to force myself to slow down. All around the dining hall, you can feel the rejuvenating effect that a good meal can bring on, the way it can make people kinder, funnier, more optimistic, and remind them it's not a mistake to go on living. It's better than any medicine. So I try to make it last and join in the conversation, sop up the gravy on my bread and nibble on it as I listen to Finnick telling some ridiculous story about a sea turtle swimming off with his hat. Laugh before I realize he's standing there, directly across the table behind the empty seat next to Joanna, watching me. I choke momentarily as the gravy bread sticks in my throat. Peeta, says Deli. It's nice to see you out and about. Two large guards stand behind him. He holds his tray awkwardly, balanced on his fingertips since his wrists are shackled, with a short chain between them. What's with the fancy bracelets? Asks Joanna. I'm not quite trustworthy yet, says Peeta. I can't even sit here without your permission. He indicates the guards with his head. Sure, he can sit here. We're old friends, said Joanna, patting the space beside her. The guards nod and Peeta takes a seat. Peeta and I had adjoining cells in the Capitol. We're very familiar with each other's screams. Annie, who's on Joanna's other side, does that thing where she covers her ears and exits reality. Finnick shoots Joanna an angry look as his arm encircles Annie. What? My head doctor says I'm not supposed to censor my thoughts. It's part of my therapy, replies Joanna. The life has gone out of our little party. Finnick murmurs things to Annie until she slowly removes her hands. Then there's a long silence while people pretend to eat. Annie, says Deli brightly, did you know it was Peta who decorated your wedding cake? Back home, his family ran the bakery, and he did all the icing. Annie cautiously looks across Joanna. Thank you, Peta. It was beautiful. My pleasure, Annie, says Peta, and I hear that old note of gentleness in his voice that I thought was gone forever. Not that it's directed at me, but still. If we're going to fit in that walk, we better go, Finnick tells her. He arranges both of their trays so he can carry them in one hand while holding tightly to her with the other. Good seeing you, Peta. You be nice to her, Finnick, or I might try and take her away from you. It could be a joke if the tone wasn't so cold. Everything it conveys is wrong. The open distrust of Finnick, the implication that Peta has his eye on Annie, that Annie could desert Finnick, that I do not even exist. Oh, Peta, says Finnick lightly, don't make me sorry I restarted your heart. He leads Annie away after giving me a concerned glance. When they're gone, Deli says in a reproachful voice, he did save your life, Peta, more than once. For her, he gives me a brief nod. For the rebellion, not for me, I don't owe him anything. I shouldn't rise to the bait, but I do. Maybe not, but Mags is dead and you're still here. That should count for something. Yeah, a lot of things should count for something that don't seem to, Katniss. I've got some memories I can't make sense of, and I don't think the Capitol touched them. A lot of nights on the train, for instance, he says. Again, the implications. That more happened on the train than did. That what did happen, those nights I only kept my sanity because his arms were around me, no longer matters. Everything is a lie. Everything a way of misusing him. Peta makes a little gesture with a spoon connecting Gale and me. So are you two officially a couple now, or are they still dragging out the star-crossed lover thing? Still dragging, says Joanna. Spasm caused Peta's hands to tighten into fists, then splay out in a bizarre fashion. Is it all he can do to keep them from my neck? I can feel the tension in Gale's muscles next to me, fear and altercation. But Gale simply says, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. What's that? Asks Peta. You, Gale answers. You have to be a little more specific, says Peta. What about me? That they've replaced you with the evil version of yourself, says Joanna. Gale finishes his milk. You done? He asks me. I rise and we cross to drop off our trays. At the door, an old man stops me because I'm still clutching the rest of my gravy bread in my hand. Something in my expression, or maybe the fact that I've made no attempt to conceal it, makes him go easy on me. He lets me stuff the bread in my mouth and move on. Gale and I are almost to my compartment when he speaks again. I didn't expect that. I told you he hated me, I say. It's the way he hates you. It's so familiar. I used to feel like that, he admits, when I'd watch you kissing him on the screen. Only I knew I wasn't being entirely fair. He can't see that. We reach my door. Maybe he just sees me as I really am. I have to get some sleep. Gale catches my arm before I can disappear. So that's what you're thinking now? I shrug. Katniss, as your oldest friend, believe me when I say he's not seeing you as you really are. He kisses my cheek and goes. I sit on my bed trying to stuff information from my military tactic books into my head while memories of my nights with Peta on the train distract me. After about 20 minutes, Joanna comes in and throws herself across the foot of my bed. You missed the best part. Deli lost her temper at Peta over how he treated you. She got very squeaky. It was like someone stabbing a mouse with a fork repeatedly. The whole dining hall was riveted. What'd Peta do? I asked. He started arguing with himself like he was two people. The guards had to take him away. On the good side, no one seemed to notice I finished his stew. Joanna rubs her hand over her protruding belly. I look at the layer of grime under her fingernails. Wonder if the people in 7 ever bathe. We spend a couple of hours quizzing each other on military terms. I visit my mother and Prim for a while. When I'm back in my compartment, showered, staring into the darkness, I finally ask, "Joanna, could you really hear him screaming?" "That was part of it," she says, "like the Jabberjays in the arena, only it was real. And it didn't stop after an hour. Tick-tock. Tick-tock," I whisper back. Roses, wolf moths, tributes, frosted dolphins, friends, mockingjays, stylists, me. Everything screams in my dreams tonight. Okay, that's chapter 17.